Getting our quacking elephants all in a row. Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm super confused.
Victory achieved.
My gosh. I'm Mark, by the way, I guess, or what's left of Mark after that title.
And this is Church is Lame, the podcast where we try to fix the church by talking about the stupid things churches do that break the entire body.
So, according to your headline for this episode, Christians are engaging in some really inappropriate genetic modifications. Am I right?
Yes, that's exactly what's happening here. Thank you for seeing that in the subtext.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start here. Law of nature, right?
Mhm.
Law of nature. If it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it waddles like a duck, then
It's an elephant?
there you go,
Okay.
right? It's incredible that in this last couple of days, there has been just an onslaught of stories all in the same ilk. Real Clear Religion. Christian nationalism didn't cause January 6th. Sojourners. What does white Christian nationalism... words is hard.
Yeah.
What does white Christian nationalism even mean anyway? U.S. News. Being a patriotic American doesn't make you a Christian nationalist. AP News. Michael Flynn, from government insider to holy warrior. And so all of these stories, and I'll put links to them all in the show notes. All these stories are really kind of a coordinated effort to say Christian nationalism is a liberal created propaganda piece, right?
Okay.
Is kind of the heart of this, right?
Mhm.
But what's really happening is over the last, let's call it 6 years, we have seen the conservative Christian, we used to call them the conservative Christian base.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. We've seen a football put on the ground, and on one side of the football is the red shirts, on the other side of the football is the yellow shirts, right? And so conservative Christians keep lining up on the same side of the ball all together. Muslim immigrants, hate them, get them out of here. LGBTQ plus, hate them, getting them out of here. Pro-choicers, hate them, get them out of here. The election was stolen. Like, we're all on the same side of that ball, right? And so it seems like whatever ideas certain political leaders had, the conservative Christian base would line up on the exact same side of the football, talking points and all.
Mm-hmm.
And heavens to Betsy, wouldn't you notice it, that the people on the other side of the football kind of noticed exactly who it was on the other side of the football with them and could consistently say, hey, you guys on the other side of the football, you are all kind of, I can find you in the same places. I can find you in churches. I can find you in affluent suburbs, right? I can find you on the right of the political divide. So on one side, like, they've identified what's going on and have given it a name. And on the other side, they've finally realized that they've been pegged. Like, oh, you got us. So let's try to do a little Jedi, like, these are not the droids you're looking for kind of action.
Yeah, it certainly
Right?
does seem that from some of these headlines. I mean, because
Yeah.
like the Sojourners one here, you know, what does white Christian nationalism even mean anyway? It's like, well, that's kind of a stupid question because these are
Right.
all well-defined things here.
Yes.
You know, it's like you don't want to acknowledge that, you know, that racist Christian nationalism has, you know, become a thing, like, and has become a thing that like Christians identify with. Like, in order to be considered Christian by many people, you need to be, you know, if maybe not admitting openly, you need to, like, you know, in the background, you need to be a white supremacist and you need to be a Christian, and
Right.
that's it. And you need to be like into American exceptionalism and all that good stuff. And if you're not,
Right.
then you're just a bad person.
Right. And I think it's even more important to state the other side of that coin, right?
Mhm.
Like a real, if you're not white, if you're not Christian, then you are not a real American.
Yeah, and that might
know what I mean?
explain like some of what we talked in the last episode. We were talking about like some of
Yeah.
like the just the weird disparity between, you know, like how you had white evangelicals by like, you know, a 68% thought that, you know, America, you know, it was a bad thing that America is becoming less Christian, but only 16% of non-white evangelicals, right? Like there's definitely a racial aspect here,
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think the other aspect is that we have now closed the circle. And I think now here in 2022, to me, it's become abundantly clear that Christian conservatives cannot tell the difference between their faith and their politics. They are one and the same.
Yeah, and you know, like it's one of those things, like if I'm being as nice as I can about it, which is not very nice because I'm kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
But like
that's why we love you.
Yeah, right. So, you know, when it comes down to, you know, your politics, like, so your Christian identity and your values as a Christian should expand and extend outward from you into the world around you, right?
Sure.
And if we're talking about politics, then how you engage politically should come from that value set, right?
Absolutely.
And so to that degree, like, I don't know how you really separate out your religious ideals from your political ones. Like if I was voting for somebody who was a Buddhist, I would really expect them to be concerned about certain things. You know, as a Buddhist, I would like being like, okay, what do Buddhists believe? I would expect that person to be doing that instead of being like, hey, you know, I think we should increase suffering. You're like, you know, no.
Right.
Like I would not expect that from a Buddhist, right? So it's like, I get that. But I'm not sure if you'd agree with this, but to me, it seems like what was happening is that people are beginning, instead of with their Christianity, they're beginning with their politics and then working, you know, and trying in what, you know, call retconning, you know, they're just like retroactively, you know, finding continuity with their faith. And that is, so is that how you read the situation?
I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. You know, like, I think I would say people probably start with their capitalism first, right? And then retcon their faith into their capitalism.
I'm not sure that you can, you know, in any sensible way call and for these people, call yourself an American without calling yourself, you know, a pro-capitalist person. Cause it's like, that just seems to be how it is. It's like, there's like that definition, you know, for white Christian nationalism, is, you know, you're a capitalist and you're a Christian and therefore you're an American.
Yeah. So like all this to say, like just this week, there's just been a flood of articles that make it clear that they finally understand there's a marketing problem, right? There's a PR problem in being a Christian, because now being a Christian means you're Christian nationalism. It's like, well, hey guys, thanks for coming to the party. It's nice that you finally showed up and realized that you had a problem. But the problem is they don't understand the real problem. They think they just have a PR marketing problem. It's no, the real problem is that you guys have stopped following Christ because you're too busy following the dollar, the ups and downs of the dollar, and you're too busy following political polls that Christ has long been given a back seat in the car, in the bus. You know what I mean? You know, when the church lifts up people like, you know, Michael Flynn, you know, convicted criminal, Donald Trump, you know, woman abuser, convicted criminal, still won't release his tax returns, all that stuff, right? When we start forgetting that, hey, we used to be the body that insisted that a moral standard mattered, that an ethical standard mattered, that a professional standard mattered, that a spiritual standard mattered. We used to be those people, and that conversation has disappeared. And the reason it's disappeared is because they know, when we all know, that was all smoke and mirrors. Apparently what really matters is winning. Yeah,
and oh gosh, I mean, because just given some recent events, you know, because like at this point, you know, there's a whole situation with, you know, Donald Trump having taken a bunch of classified documents out of the White House. And you know, and regardless of whether or not you think he was right or not, the law is the law. The law says he had violated the law. And if this were the 1950s, you know, and an ex-president did that, they would have been castigated by everyone.
And remember, there was a time where we had enough honor in this country that, like, hey, if you were caught on tape saying something you shouldn't have said, that's enough to get you to resign from the presidency. And those days are long gone. now you can grab him by the pee and still become president.
Yeah, and
You know?
it's
So-
so it's just like this kind of madness. Like so
Yeah.
when you talk about, you know, like the concern is winning, like that really seems to be the case. Like it's about winning, and I'm not even sure what they're trying to win. I mean, like I saw an article that, you know, in this past week, and it was somebody from, oh gosh, what was like the Department of Justice, in a tweet lambasted this organization. You know, it was like some sort of legal fund type of a thing, for being a hate group.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the Southern Poverty Law Center
Yeah.
labeled this as a hate group.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's funny to me that, you know, only white people ever seem to complain, or like
Yeah.
the vast majority of the people that complain are white people that complain about what the mostly black SPLC does.
Yeah.
And designating somebody a hate group. It's like, so, you know, when we talk about white Christian nationalism, like there are a lot of Christians in the SPLC.
Yeah.
So it's like the things you like suck, and like when somebody else is like calling you out on it, you can't deal with it.
Yeah. So let's turn the corner. How does this break the church?
Oh my.
Right. So it is one thing, like there's a problem when you get caught doing the thing you ought not be doing, right? When you get caught with your pants down, right? That's a problem. The bigger problem though is when you get caught with your pants down and then deny getting caught with your pants down. Right? So in this whole conversation about Christian nationalism, yes, it's real. It exists. It exists the same way that white privilege exists. And you can't just be Jordan Peterson and get on camera and say, how big of a check do I have to write not to talk about white privilege, which is in itself an example of white privilege, right?
Oh, just a
So
little.
you can't be a Christian nationalist and spend the last 6 years like staunchly advocating for Christian nationalism ideals and then say, well, there's no such thing. Well, yeah, there is such a thing, and there's millions of you, and you all act like idiots every day of the week, and these stories make it to the news that we can't ignore. If we could ignore them, we wouldn't have a show.
Yeah, and like it's like,
Yeah.
you know, like the band Anti-Flag released in 2020 their album 2020 Vision, which has a song called Christian Nationalist on there.
Right.
Not because it was like a thing that had happened recently, but because it's a thing that had been a problem and been a growing problem. So it's like, yeah, you know, white Christian America, your pants are on your ankles, and, you know, don't ask me what the pumpkin is for. You know, just
Yeah. So I would say, like, we as the Christ followers should never, ever, ever be worried about death, about the end of an era, about the end of cultural identity, the end of spiritual identity. We should never worry about the end of anything, because we believe that at the end of anything is resurrection.
Mhm.
Right? That what is old and dead can be brought back to life, even more beautiful than as it ever existed before. And that's why I'm always advocating, like, maybe it's time for this thing to die, whatever it is. Maybe it's time for this denomination to die. Maybe it's time for this church to close doors. Maybe it's time that, you know, Christian conservatism, let's not call it Christian nationalism. Let me be charitable and call it Christian conservative. Maybe it's time for Christian conservatism to kind of, that we all agree that it's done just as much harm as it's done good. And maybe it needs to take a backseat to real Christianity, you know?
yeah, you know, and oh gosh, it's like, again, like going back to what I said before, like, you know, just like it's people retconning their faith from their politics and their social beliefs otherwise.
Yeah.
And how does this break the church? In my point of view, it's like, because you're stacking, like Jesus came and said, this is what I expect of you. And then you're coming up with every excuse in the world not to do the things
Not to do it. Yeah.
he said.
Yeah.
Like,
That's good. That's so good.
so it's like, that makes you, by any strict definition, an antichrist.
Mhm.
So just chew on that for a bit.
Shut your mouth, Mark.
Like
Shut your mouth.
when you call yourself a Christian and refuse to do what Jesus said, you are being an antichrist.
Right. Yeah, and that gets back to my title there. Like Jesus says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the homeless, right? And so if Jesus tells you that this is what a duck looks like and walks like and sounds like and feels like, and you don't walk that way and you don't sound that way and you don't feel that way, then I'm not going to call you a duck. I will call you many, many things, and I will even try to be charitable in the words I do call you, but I'm not going to call you the thing that you are clearly not, right?
Yeah.
And that is the church. For me, that's like, I'm not going to call you the church when you don't act like the beloved of Jesus.
But we will use whatever pronouns you wish.
There you go. Yeah, totally. All right, let's move along. We've been on this one long enough. Let's go.
All right. What do we got
All
next,
right,
sir?
So I'm going to make a concerted effort to have a main topic, and let's just kind of here's some other interesting things that happen that are just kind of like, yeah, this makes sense of how this breaks the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, religionnews.com. I've never heard of this denomination before. The African Methodist Episcopal Church. Bishops condemn leaders who took massive kickbacks from church sales in New York. Okay, so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
So here's the deal. I think we all understand this idea implicitly, but New York has an explicit set of laws. So, Mark, I would like you to define two words for me, please.
Okay.
The first word, Mark, could you please define the word non?
Non?
Non.
As an N-O-N or N-A-A-N?
Like N-O-N.
Okay, because the other one is bread.
Yeah.
So non, that's a derivative from the Latin word for no or not.
No. Thank you. And then the second word, what I'd like you to define, is profit. P-R-O-F-I-T.
Okay, profit. That would be, the money gained from the sale of a thing over the money that was spent to create it.
So non-profit. Define that.
Okay, so a nonprofit is an organization that does not gain additional money over the funds they spent to acquire something.
Okay, so there is a rule in New York, makes it very clear that if you are a nonprofit and you sell your assets, the leaders of the nonprofit cannot personally gain from the sale of that asset. Well, guess what happened when the leaders of this church sold the church?
I'm guessing that they gained something.
They gained massively, like to the tune of 6 figures apiece.
Balls.
High 6 fingers. So
Six
anyway,
fingers.
right? Oops. Okay. Right? Big no-no. Right? And then it's all been worked out, settlements and all that kind of stuff. Right? But so like there would be a way of doing this that would have made like that everybody would have cried foul right away. Right? So the church says, hey, we're up for sale, $1 million. Right? Real estate developer comes in and says, great, we're going to pay you $2 million and you guys can spread the extra $1 million amongst yourselves however you like. Right? Like that would have thrown up red flags everywhere and everybody would have want, what? No, that's not happening. Right?
Yeah.
Instead, what happened was the real estate developer kind of came in and said, look, here's the deal. You guys need money. We got money. We want to develop this area, right? Here's what we're going to give you for the church. Oh, and by the way, for helping us do this deal, we'll give you a little finder's fee, right? So we're going to give you some money that's not directly related to the sale of the church, right? Nobody will know because it's not actually part of the sale, right? But of course, it's New York, and and it's sin, and sin always gets found out, right? And so, like, this is kind of obvious. How does this break the church, right?
Yeah.
When you're a nonprofit, and especially when you're the church, you cannot be lining your own pockets over and above whatever your church body has established, what your fair compensation is, right? Like in New York, it's massively expensive to live, right? Get that. So your income as a pastor in New York is going to be higher than the median wage. We get that. Nobody's got a problem with that. The problem is when you decide you deserve more and you can kind of align the stars to give yourself a big windfall. You can't do that. And it makes all church leaders look bad. And some church leaders are good and they don't deserve to look bad because you're a greedy MF,
Yeah, and I'm gonna be with you on that one. Yeah, like the way I think this breaks the church is the same way that these, these shiesty televangelist types break the church.
Yep.
No different.
No different. Absolutely. Okay, moving right along. I put 2 more kind of like kind of stories together because the how does this break the church is fairly obvious. Pastor arrested for threatening to kill wife.
Yeah, because why not? Like, I don't even think we need to say anything about that. Like, it's just, let's just let's have a moment of silence so we can hear all the head slapping.
Right. And the only thing I want to add to this, just to add context, is it wasn't just like a marital fight that got heated and somebody just said, "Oh, I want to kill you." It wasn't that. Like, this dude got out a gun, loaded it, and was like, "Man, I'm going to kill you," kind of deal. So, like, yeah, like, if you are claiming to be a messenger of the Prince of Peace, a loaded gun is not your scroll of choice,
Yeah, blessed are the peacemakers who don't go around threatening their spouse with a gun.
Yeah, like, and I understand, like, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is iron sharpening iron, but that is not that. Threatening to kill people is not discipline, and it is not discipleship. It is just ego gone manic. Words is hard, manic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a kind of madness that's really hard to put into meaningful words without sounding pretentious.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, moving on.
All
We
right.
are going to get through this. Okay. School defends baptizing over 100 students without parental consent.
I'm not sure how you defend that.
Well, I mean, I get it. Like, I think all of us in the evangelical world, we have now accepted the idea of children choosing to follow Christ, right? And we baptize kids fairly early. Like, the Catholics, they'll grab you at birth, right? As soon as they can put you over a bowl of holy water, they'll baptize you. But even in modern churches, the ages are getting younger and younger for when they will publicly baptize a young person. And I find that a little bit alarming. Like, you're younger. Like, I would never give a person your age keys to a car, or anything else. I probably wouldn't even leave you home to babysit another kid. And yeah, I'm going to let you make this life-changing decision to follow Christ.
Well, this kind of leads us toward that, believer baptism versus pedobaptism discussion.
Right. We've gotten so conditioned to accept that baptism is good regardless of the situation, that somebody in this school kind of went like, yeah, totally, this is totally harmless. Like, these kids are going to profess their faith. It's going to be beautiful. Like, and they didn't actually think like, I'm the parent and I'm actually the one who's responsible for their spiritual upbringing.
Right.
Like, you didn't think that you want to, like, circle me in on this,
Yeah, that's one of those things. I'm going to say, like, it's always weird to, like, have like a 5-year-old be like, come out as like, I believe in Jesus. It's like, I'm not really sure a 5-year-old knows what they believe or not. But then again, the baptism isn't about them. It's about us.
Sure.
Like, when we baptize somebody in our church, it's not about, like, that baptism doesn't make any difference to them. It's us as a community coming together and acknowledging this person's repentance and whatnot, or acknowledging our commitment as a church, as like the responsible thinking adults to raise this person. And
yeah.
And the biggest and most important party in that, I'm with you. Like, that's their parents.
Yeah.
Like, the parents need to be confident in the decision their child is making before they allow this. So it's like, that's just weird.
Yeah, somebody just didn't have a lot of forethought. They just kind of did something in the moment that really wasn't well thought out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to rake them over the coals too much.
No.
But yeah, it was a dumb thing. Don't do that again.
Yeah, like, your intentions are good. The execution sucked.
Right. It had a good beat, but I couldn't dance to it. Yeah.
Not sure why you started getting in a really weird Arnie accent there.
What's that from? I think that's a Robin Williams bit, but I can't remember what that's from. Maybe Good Morning Vietnam, maybe? I don't remember. Okay. All right. Or maybe it was Mike Myers when he does Dieter. He did his Dieter character. That's a good beat, but I couldn't dance to it. Okay.
Whatever.
Anyway, okay. All right. So here's probably my favorite article of the week from our good friend or person who would refuse to ever acknowledge us.
Well, there's that.
Phil Cook. Yeah. The shocking reason, once again, give them an award for like the article that you have to click on because the headline is so good. Yeah. The shocking reason Christians are losing credibility in America, which, by the way, happens to be the premise of our show, by the way. So, Phil Cook, if you ever want to talk, we're here.
And
Call me.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Phil, I can come up with some shocking stuff. Whatever you're
Yeah.
about to say to me isn't going to shock me in the slightest.
Okay, so like, I think Phil Cook in this article asks an excellent question,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why are churches losing credibility? It's an important question. And like we talked about last episode, like if we want churches to exist, to thrive, to be, to make it obvious why they have value, we need to be able to answer this question of credibility and why it's being lost. The problem here is even though he asks a good question, when he actually starts digging into it and asking deeper questions, the deeper questions have nothing to do with credibility. The deeper questions are about obedience. And so let me just kind of let me take you through the article, which is, by the way, is what every church leader does, right?
Yeah, I mean, like,
No matter what the topic is, they bring it back to obedience to guilt you into doing whatever it is they want you to do. We want you to tithe more. We want you to attend more. We want you to invite more friends to our church. We want you to come to the bake sale. We want you to be part of the home group. We want you. We want you. We want you. And the way they get you to do it is by talking about how disobedient your heart is.
well, I'm going to give Phil here the benefit of the doubt for the moment, just for the
Yeah.
moment. So tell me what is he saying here?
So we looked at what should be 4 common practices of active Christians: prayer, church, attendance, Bible reading, and tithing, which would be 5. Prayer, church, attendance, Bible reading, tithing. That's 4. Okay, great. Okay, so here's kind of what they find. Here's what they find. Prayer. Only 63% of Christians say prayer is essential. Church attendance. 3 out of 8 Sundays. Let's see here. So that's what's considered a regular attender now. Like 3 out of 8 Sundays is regular attendance. Bible reading. Let's see here. 40% of church-going Christians read the Bible once a month, rarely or never. Tithing. Fewer than 10% of churchgoers give 10% or more of their income. Right? So their findings have nothing to do with credibility, or the other word I like to use, to use interchangeably with credibility, is trustworthiness, right? None of these stats have anything to do with credibility or trustworthiness. They have to do with obedience.
Yeah, and like not even obedience necessarily to like what scripture teaches, but like there are things in there that are just like cultural things, like this whole like, oh, do you read your Bible, once a month or less?
Yeah.
Well, then you're a bad person. It's like, really? So you're talking about all those illiterate people in history who the only time they ever heard scripture was when they went to, a worship service? They were all horrible sinners and are going to hell now because they didn't read the Bible? In a time where if they could read, they couldn't have afforded the scroll upon which even one of the books of the Bible was written. I mean, like, come on, son.
Yeah. So like his big takeaway, his big conclusion after doing this incredible amount of research, whatever, is that Christians are all hat and no cattle. They're all talk, no action. It's like, well, yeah, I agree with that, but not for the reasons like this is like that Christians are all hat and no cattle is not why they're losing credibility.
No, it's like we keep, how many times have you or I in this podcast said, like, Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. How many times have we brought that up? Like, that to me is a pretty obvious reason of like why, Christianity is, or Christians are losing their credibility. There's that and like, all the rapey stuff going on, just the sexual abuse after sexual abuse, or just general abuse after general abuse. I mean, it's like, give me a break. Like, you don't have to look hard for these answers, Phil. Like, your heart's in the right place. You want to answer the question.
Yeah. So let me just tell a quick story here, and I promise I'll make it quick.
Okay.
I was once given jury duty over a case where a homeless man exposing himself to kids in a park. Okay. And so you're going through jury selection, and the lawyer for the plaintiff was asked me a question. Said, don't you think it's possible that a kid 7 years old would possibly fabricate a story in order to make the adults in the room happy, right? And I thought about it for a second, and I said very plainly to him,
yes,
look, here's the deal. You take the number of opportunities a person has to tell a lie, and then you compare that to the amount of times a person actually tells a lie. And that's how you measure their trustworthiness. To say that a person is untrustworthy based solely on their age is ridiculous. And you should be ashamed of yourself for even floating the idea. And that's kind of where we're at with this story. It's kind of like, yes, the church is losing credibility, but for you to suggest that the whole world can look in the church and kind of go, yeah, not so much. Not so, like, it has nothing to do with Christian obedience. It has to do with how the rest of the world looks in and kind of goes, yeah, they're mostly harmless. You know, they get together, they sing songs, they put some money in a basket, and you know, if they're having a good month, maybe they can hand out some sleeping bags to some homeless people. They like to chant Jesus a lot, and they're not too fond of gay people or pro-choicers, but on the whole, mostly harmless. Well, you get the reputation for being mostly harmless by being mostly harmless, mostly ineffectual, mostly on the sidelines, mostly not worth talking about. That's how you get the reputation for being mostly harmless.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, the idea that for a lot of people that like church is it's basically just a social club.
Yeah.
I don't think is that much of a criticism of the church. I think that for a lot of people that go to church, that is the function it serves.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that don't stop going to church just because you're not fully into it. Hey, go there, get, some good Christian community, get fed. That's a great place to be. But unfortunately, if our congregations aren't being, I like the word you use, effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an issue. That's a big thing for me. Like, we need to be effective as the body of Christ.
Exactly. Absolutely. Okay. Real persecution watch. All right. So we have our share of interesting times in America. Whether or not our freedom to speak, our freedom to worship the way we choose without fear of some sort of punishment by the government. These are all things worth talking about. But there are places in the world where there's some pretty scary stuff going on to Christians. ChristianPost.com. American nun rescued by U.S. forces in Burkina Faso. I don't even know where that is. But that was one. And then this one's really interesting. World News. Christians who fled China forced to leave after South Korea denies asylum. I don't want to spend too much time in here, but if you're a Christian in China, you're not having a good time, and you're certainly not practicing your life out loud, right? South Korea has another problem. Even though they are a Christian country, they live in perpetual fear of the Chinese through North Korea militarily punishing them for existing, right? And so anything that happens from China is probably something that South Korea is probably going to wave off on for very good reason. I was stationed there for a year and a half. When those sirens go off, you don't know if it's real or a drill. And so, life can get really scary very fast in a part of the world that actually doesn't make that much headlines very much, So, so there are Christians in China who have nowhere to go. And at this point, there's still no real plan for what to do with them, So when you think that you have an issue because your 10 Commandments can't hang on the wall of your local school, I'm not overly moved in comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Disaffiliation watch.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I didn't think this kind of thing happened.
Okay. Well, so if the UMC wasn't already in enough hot water over just the LGBTQ thing, now they've decided to wade into the totally safe waters of gun control.
Oh, my.
So UMC bishops back assault weapons ban, bash the quote-unquote idolatry of guns. This is America, and there is nothing more American than people's insistence on their God-given right to own a gun. And so, like, just so you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, I'm not super invested one way or the other in the gun control debate. I think there's room for everybody to give a little bit on this one. This is one of those topics where I think, like, if everybody sat down on the negotiating table and everybody walked away unhappy, that would probably be a good negotiation. So I think there's room for everybody to give in a little bit on here. And I personally would like to see children stop dying in schools more than I'd like to see somebody own their 5th AK-47. you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's odd to me that like that the UMC like weighs in on this at all.
Yeah.
Given what's going on right now. Like,
well, here's my read. Like, you tell me what you think of this conspiracy theory.
I'll tell you.
The exodus is on, right? The exodus is happening. The people who are tired of the LGBTQ, they are out the door. They've finally been given their green light, and they have put the hammer down. They are leaving, right? And so, like, what if the UMC leadership is just saying, well, let's just purge all the crazy people then? Like, you want to be a homophobe? There's the door. You want to be some sort of gun-loving, patriot? There's the door. Like, if we're going to lose people, let's lose them all now so we can put the Band-Aid on and heal.
So like it's the Christian version of a purge night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's my theory. Yeah.
As you know what? Oh gosh, it's hard for me to hear you say them, not be like, yeah. I want to disagree with you just on principle that it's a conspiracy theory, but it's like, maybe, because, like, why not?
Yeah.
It's like you have to break the bone to reset the leg, right? So,
yeah,
maybe that's what's happening. I'd like to think that's not what's happening, but I guess, stranger things are going on in the world.
I think if we are going to be the light bearers of the message that all life is sacred, then I think you have to line up on the side that says there are these machines that are created to take away life as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. And if we believe that all life is sacred, then we fundamentally resist all and any attempts to take life by force, right?
Yeah, not a big fan of taking life by force.
Right? So I think if you're going to be incendiary, this is one of the easier biblical principles to get incendiary about,
Yeah, I mean, but like next week is it going to be like, UMC, releases that it shall now be identified as, as a not church, as a for-profit organization.
There you go. Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry. That's just a stupid joke. I shouldn't have made it.
That's a stretch too far. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, man, it's just, it's a crazy world out there. And, I'd say I'm looking forward to seeing what next week gives us, but that's a damned lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Comments. So, Natalie Bell, a couple episodes, a while ago, actually, we talked about Foursquare and the abuse going on there. And Natalie simply writes, thank you for talking about Foursquare. Former students and victims like myself have been trying to bring awareness for over a decade.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, yeah. So part of the reason I wanted to highlight this comment is so our mission here is to talk about stupid things that Christians and churches do that break the church. And clearly abusing women and abusing children breaks the church. But hopefully, one of the things that we've seen through a couple of our stories is one of the things we can do by talking about these stories is to these victims, we can say to you, it's not your imagination. You weren't imagining it. You were really abused. It really should never have happened. And even though we can't make it unhappen, we mourn with you and we're sorry it happened. And we are behind you in whatever road you need to go down to heal, and whoever you need to rake over the coals to make it known that something that shouldn't have happened is what you need to do. And we acknowledge that you went through it, and we are not going to sweep it under the rug on somebody else's behalf.
Yeah, and it's a thing, like, it's nice to know that we accidentally helped give somebody some voice on this.
Yep.
Because I'm sure if people aren't listening to you, people aren't believing you, that you need all the help you can get. And exactly. I really hope, Natalie, that you and other people can get that word spread, because like the story of these things needs to come out, because it's only by really knowing exactly where the breakdown in these things were, like where, like, it's was it this or this or this in our churches that let this happen. Only by understanding that can we help to, construct our churches or reconstruct our churches to prevent that from ever happening again.
Word.
Mm-hmm.
All right. New subscribers. So once again, YouTube, I hate you. I hate the fact that on one hand, I'll get an email telling me I have a new subscriber, but then when I go to the admin portal to see what's happening, I don't actually get told who those subscribers are. WTF, YouTube. So anyway, Shale Karas, I hope I'm saying that right. Karas? Karas?
I'm more like I don't know if the first name was pronounced correct. Like, is it Chalet or?
Oh, maybe.
Chalet? I don't know.
I don't know. But please, in the comments, if you could give us like the phonetic pronunciation, that would be awesome. And Mike Bickle, also a new subscriber. Thank you so much for being willing to jump on this crazy bus with us. And maybe somewhere down the road, we can actually play a part in revitalizing the American church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by the way, talking about revitalizing things, why don't you revitalize the comments and tell us what you think about things like Christian nationalism and about these crazy things that pastors and Christians do, like threatening to kill their spouse. If you have an opinion, let us know. And by the way, anywhere that that you see stuff you can click, go ahead and click it. There's a thumbs up. There's a thumbs down. There's a notification bell. There's a like button. There's a subscribe button. There's a comment button. Click, 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 click. Click all the buttons. And anywhere you can search online, you will find Church's Lame. Facebook, Reddit. Reddit is something I'm trying to get going. Clearly, we're still small and we're not like making big waves yet, but we're there. And so if you want to do like the upvote thing, would appreciate some help with the algorithm. And if you really want to communicate with us and get your ideas in front of our eyes like quickly, email us, churcheslamepodcast@gmail.com.
You know, and you said like search anywhere. And I mean, there are some websites out there that if you search, you're not going to find us. But part of me wonders, maybe we should like set up really weird accounts. So like if like some weirdo is like goes to like some sort of strange website with weirdly strange things on it, I'm going to let you figure out what I'm talking about. Like they're just going to like find our videos up there.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, do you suppose that those types of websites would flag us for being inappropriate?
I'm sure. Yeah.
We'd be very hypocritical of them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But you know what? You know, that's why I'm happy that, you know, we have people like Rob Bell in the world who is not a fierce hypocrite.
That's funny. That's good. Although, you know, because he is a person of faith, he would probably say, you know, I'm as much full of it as anybody, and I am a hypocrite, you know.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that we're all hypocrites at some point or another.
Well, you know,
but Rob,
you got to do something, you know, when you get up in the morning.
Yep.
Might as well, right?
Yep. I hear you. Good deal.
So,
all right, man, roll us out of here.
Oh, I will roll us out of here because I need food. I need food
I'm
so
talking
bad.
about.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.